I'm more of a budget guy when it comes down to making cutting boards because I just don't want to spend several $100s on nice hardwood just to cut it up for a cutting board. So I'm going through my scraps for this first board. We're going to use as many small pieces as we can that are usable. I didn't have quite enough to complete one small board, so I'm taking a couple slices off this board for the beginner board. This will give us enough pieces to put something together that looks halfway decent. We're shooting for a basic beginner board, but you could just throw one piece of board together and that's a basic board. We want to do something a little nicer than that. I'm using mostly edge grain right here. There's two pieces in here of this hard maple that I'm showing you. I'm using the face grain on this. I don't have a problem mixing edge grain with face grain ever, so feel free to do so. I know some people are a little more picky about that. This is just a rough cut just for the glue up. Then I'm going to use a little compressed air just to clean off the boards. I try to have a plan when I'm gluing up, but it never works out. So I just get the glue on and spread it around as quickly as I can without making too much of a mess. But glue ups are just a mess. So I always use a wet rag and just clean it up. Over to my trusty Delta planer. Has been around for quite a few years. Still works good. Straight blades and all. Little epoxy fix there just to fill in the knots. I'll show you some more as we go. I ran it through there about 6 times. This will be the final dimension right here. Here's the sandpaper. I go through 80 grit, 100 grit, and 150 grit. And sometimes 220 at the very end. Making repairs, filling voids, I like to use the black super glue and a little accelerator spray. Sand it off, it works good. This is my go-to, just sawdust and wood glue. I made a bunch of different sawdust and it works out great. It fills the voids and make a little putty there. And you know what? You're probably not going to see it. The non-woodworker will never see it. Raising the grain, I just spray it with the spray bottle, watch it dry, and then once I pop the grain, I hand sand. This is 150. I only hand sand. You're just trying to take off the fuzzies. I'm going to use this chamfer bit to go around the edge. I think it looks better than the roundover bit. You let me know what you like. I think this is one of the easiest ways to make a basic board look good with a chamfer edge. I just like the look. I like the look. Always satisfying to leave your mark. I like feet on my cutting board because I don't like a cutting board that slides around. That's dangerous. I'm cleaning it off with painter solvent just to get rid of the excess sawdust and get it ready for this beeswax and mineral oil finish. This is a beginner finish. We're going to use this finish on the first 2 boards and then we're going to go to something a lot nicer on the 3rd board. But it's nice, rub it in and it looks good. Looks pretty good for a basic board, huh? Moving on to the intermediate board, we have nicer material here. We need more material because we need to cut a lot of pieces. This board right here was cracked down the middle, but we're saving it. Glue it up and clamp it up and we're going to use it. I use a machinist square to square up my blade. It works really good. I'm going to leave you a cut list. I'll post it up here on the page here. Cutting all these pieces. I try to cut all the big pieces first. We're starting at 1 1/8 and working all the way down to 1/8 of an inch. So cutting all these pieces, I use a few different variations with the push sticks, with the push block. Taking the thin pieces right here off the outside edge of the saw works best. Then I just match it up with the other one, get the right thickness, and just run it through. Don't try to run that thin piece through unless you have something like this gripper right here. You could use this. This will work up to about 1/8 inch max, or make a homemade one. This is my favorite push block, my homemade one right here. All right, put all your boards together, alternate them. That's kind of fun to play with it. It's kind of a cool pattern. Back to the glue up. I like these parallel clamps. They work great for glue ups. Just trying to get it nice and situated. Everything's squared up before I clamp it down. Scraping glue is always fun. Let me know if you have a better way of doing it. Back to the Delta planer. Ran it through a few times. and just got it down. This board ended up being right at 1 inch. The first board was 1 1/8 inches. I can't say enough good things about this Delta lunchbox planer. If you ever have a chance to buy a used one, pick one up. They work great. Just looking for any imperfections, and then I'm going to go through and hit the knots and the voids with some black super glue and some more sawdust and wood glue, and just repair them. I've never made a board that was just perfectly ready to go. Cut it down to its final length here. I like to use that clamp. It holds it nice and tight. All right, let's start on the juice groove. My juice groove is going to be from the outside edge in 1.25 inches. So this piece of wood I cut, I'm going to center it here with this double-sided tape, and that's what we're going to use as our template. Some more sticky tape on the bottom of the board just to hold it to the bench nice and firm. I'm using this cove bit, 1/2 inch cove bit, and I did a little test run. I recommend doing a test run. If you've never done this, it'll be helpful. We're going to make 3 passes, and the only thing I'm thinking about right here is going around this corner and hugging it tight to the corner. And my router lifted up right there, and you'll notice the groove is not perfect, but when we come back around for the second time right here, it's going to clean it up. So don't worry about if you wobble a little bit like I did, and I've done this a bunch of times. Each pass with the router was about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more. I think the overall was a little bit deeper than 3/8 of an inch, somewhere around there. When you're lining your block up to route your groove, just make sure it's nice and centered so the lines don't get too far off, because it'll show with this board. There's too many lines going on. All right, let's set up this router table for our handles, to cut in our handles. My handles are going to be 5 inches wide. I set up these 2 blocks. Just put your board in, ease it in, and then slide it over. That's the first cut, and then we're going to make 2 or 3 more cuts here, and just move the fence back each time just a little bit so it doesn't take off too much of a chunk at one time, and that's all bad. You don't want to blow your board out, you know what I mean? The bit I'm using right here is a cove bit, a Bosch cove bit. Now I'm just going to make some more repairs and check out the board and make sure there's not any imperfections that you overlook, because once you put oil on it, it's a wrap. So just breaking the edges and just getting out all the sand marks, and now I'm using 220, hitting that juice groove and just working that board. If you don't like sanding, you probably don't want to make cutting boards. I don't mind sanding. Here we're going to use a 1/8 inch roundover bit, just because I don't want to interfere with the handles. If we use a chamfered bit on this, it would interfere. Just going to pop the grain, hand sand one more time. Don't forget to get the fuzzies out of the juice groove. Clean the board off, get it ready for your finish. But first we have feet. These are the feet I was talking about. $6 at Home Depot. They're worth it. Pre-drill, I switched those screws out that come with the feet with stainless steel screws. So keep that in mind. And then finish it off with that oil wax. It looks pretty good. I love this pattern. Before we build this final board, I want to give you an opportunity to get your name right here on this list with your choice of project. Whether you want me to build something, fix something, teach you a technique, work on a tool, go over a tool review, anything that you think of that you think that'll fit this channel. Anything but building a boat. I don't want to build a boat. All right, so if you want to get your name on the list, email me at buildwithmooney2@gmail.com. The email is on the front of the home page. I'll let you know if we're going to use your idea. I'm making a pumpkin. Let me know if you do something else. I'm going to show you a technique that you could use with most patterns. Right here I'm using a projector, but you can make your own DIY projector. I'll leave the link at the end of this video. So now to get your pattern onto your project board, we're going to use some tape, and then we're going to use some 3M spray. It's permanent spray, but it's going on the tape, so it's no big deal. This is a nice little hack that'll save you a headache from peeling off sticky stuff off your project board. So right now I'm just going to cut everything out, the outside edge with the jigsaw. I'm not really concerned about accuracy right now, just because I'm going to sand it down. I'm really more concerned about the inside lines. I marked the back of the stem with the pumpkin just so it lined up because I had to cut this one with the jigsaw. So now we're going to cut this on the scroll saw, a Delta scroll saw, and you have one chance to cut this. It doesn't matter if you're on the line or not. I'm just pushing it through. If I make a mistake, just keep pushing. I don't care if I have a flat spot in there, because you're going to put these back together, and you're going to put them back together without sanding. And now we're going to have to transfer these into our hardwood. Right now I'm just going to mark these on the back so I don't lose track, and that is nice how that peels off. You see how nice that is right there? And look right here. You almost can't see the line, can you, Russ? But you can, but it's real fine. So this is how we're going to make this work. Almost seamless. Here's the hardwood that we're going to use for the pumpkin. Pretty fall looking. So save those pieces right here because we're going to use this to clamp later. And right here I'm just cutting out my pieces, and I'm leaving a little meat on the bone, just about an 1/8 inch, 1/16 of an inch, no more than an 1/8 inch, because this stuff is hard. So now we have our patterns and our pieces traced out. We're going to use a pattern bit for this. This is not my normal sticky tape I use, the double-sided tape, but it'll work. Once you get them all stuck down to the table, get your piece, get it stuck on there. Just take your time and make a nice smooth pass. You only have one chance to really do it. Right here, there was too much meat on the bone, so I'm using the jigsaw to clean it up because that router just about came out of my hand. So just take your time, work it around, and especially the ones that are going to fit on both sides, like this one right here. It's not going to be perfect, but we're going to make it look perfect when we're all done. I'm making some reference marks on the pumpkin right here, so when it's gluing up, I can see where it's lining up. Package tape over the spare pieces that we're going to use as clamps, and then I'm just going one piece at a time. Just working from left to right. Remember, there is a gap there, but we're going to fill it in so it doesn't look like a gap, and it'll look beautiful. You notice I put wax paper down because I'm using this board as a backboard for the cutting board. Can I say board one more time? So it didn't stick. Clean it up. And right here, I mixed up all that sawdust. I used about 3 or 4 different variations right here. We're going to make the imperfections go away before they ever even appear. How about that? Wood glue and sawdust. Right here, some more with this Wingay we're using for the stem. This turned out pretty nice. Now when I did cut the pattern bit, it was off, so I had to hand fit this one. And then over to the disc sander. This just takes material off like nothing. I got the stem to fit pretty good and clamp it in just with the one single clamp. And I'm using a round over bit. I think it was a 1/4 inch round over bit for the pumpkin. And that worked good. On the back side, I just broke the edges, left it square. Just hand sanding and using the file and just filling in some more gaps. Look at this. We're using tung oil. No more mineral oil and beeswax. Try tung oil. This stuff has been around for 2,500 years that they know of. You put your first coat on, you let it sit for 60 minutes, and then buff it off like I'm doing right here. And then, once you buff that all off, you're going to let it sit for, it says 12 hours on the stuff I'm using, but I let it sit for 18 hours. And then there it is right there the next day. And now we're going to take this white, non-abrasive 3M pad and just buff it out according to the tung oil manufacturer on the bottle. Buffing it out. And look at me, I spilt half a bottle of tung oil. What a joke. But we're going to use some of it. So this is the second coat, right? Putting more on the second coat, pretty liberal. The first coat was thinner. Remember, you're going to take it off in 60 minutes. And drilling these feet into this hardwood, this was really hard. So I recommend taking the screw and running it back and forth, even after the pre-drill. And there you have, man. Look at that. You can't see any gap hoses there. Look at that. Looking good.
Oh no, I could get it back. I could get it back.
This is the worst day ever.
But I could just lick it off on my finger splitter.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
You earned your cracker. There you go.
I made my other cracker.